Welcome to the Balanced Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Sherman, fitness coach for burnt out perfectionist. If you're ready to break free from overwhelm, simplify your nutrition, and make fitness finally work for you instead of against you, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into easy strategies to balance your health with your busy life. Let's hustle for balance, not burnout. Grab a seat and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. It has been a few weeks, and I kept telling myself, I'm like, Lindsay, you don't need to acknowledge that you haven't filmed a podcast in a few weeks. I'm like, just jump into the podcast. You don't need to acknowledge it, but me being myself, I just need to acknowledge things like that. It has been a few weeks. We are officially in spring, I think, here in upstate New York. If it ever stops raining, I feel like it's literally been raining for a month, but we are officially in spring, which means that things just get busier in this season of life when we come out of the deep, dark winter. So I've had some other projects going on, and the podcast just kind of, fell to the side. And, that's what I kind of enjoy about being a business owner is that I can just let some things, like the podcast, take a little breather, if it means that, my other more important things like my client work, my client programming, front-facing content, things like Instagram. If those things, need to get done and it's a busier season of life, sometimes things like the podcast just have to take a little back seat. And that is fine. But we are back to recording, and some things have changed since I last talked to you. And the podcast is not changing, by the way. I'm actually hoping to record a few episodes today so that I can get a little ahead of things as it gets busy this spring and summer. But the podcast is not changing. But if you follow me on Instagram or even on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you find me, you may have noticed that I have been posting a little bit more ag related content. And if you do know me, or you've been following me for a little bit, you would know that my background is actually in agriculture. And what I actually went to school for and got my degree in was animal science before becoming a fitness coach. And I worked on a dairy farm. I was an assistant herds person on a dairy farm. And that's what my background was before I started a fitness coaching business. So super different from what I do now. But you may have noticed that I am starting to tie the two in together in my business. And I have changed my little bio on Instagram to fitness coach for women in agriculture. And I want to just touch on that in this episode because I feel like it deserves a little bit of maybe an explanation, a little bit of space here, within my business, within these social media platforms. And I thought the podcast was a perfect place to talk about why I did that and what that kind of means. So as you know, if you are, in the online space, like every business has had to get so niched and, find ways to be a little bit different, a little bit more specific, a little bit more specialized. And since I've started my fitness coaching business, we're going on 3 years now, if you can believe that. I've always struggled a little bit to nail down like what my niche, what my specialty was, who I wanted to talk to, who I wanted to work with. And while I've worked with some amazing women and men over these last 3 years, I haven't had like really a clear focus. And I think that's where a lot of fitness coaches, personal trainers start. Like we just start off training, a wide variety of people as we learn and grow our skills as trainers and as coaches. And then we kind of hone in on who we're really good at training and who we're really good at talking to and understanding the struggles of. I know some trainers, really specialize in training elderly people, right? Like that is just their jam. They love that. I've also done that and I really enjoy that. But, people kind of like fall into what they really are good at and enjoy. Some trainers are really good at, training high school, college athletes. Some really fall into the category of like training moms, maybe because they are a mom and they've been through that journey. And I think I kind of knew that this was the direction I should have gone in for years. But when I left agriculture, when I left my job on the dairy farm, I was so burnt out with the industry. And I talked about this a little bit. I got to be on the Dairy Hour podcast with Dairy Gal Vale. So if there are any fellow agriculture people here listening, you might have heard of that. But I got to be on her podcast this past weekend, and it's not out yet, but it will be here soon within the next couple of weeks. And we talked about this a little bit on how I got so burnt out in the industry. It's what my life was for quite a long time. It's what my first job was when I was in high school. When I was 14, I started working on a dairy farm, feeding calves. I didn't really grow up on a farm, but I started in my teens and I really had no clue what I was doing, but I learned as I went. And so dairy farming, while I wasn't someone who like grew up on the farm, like as a baby, I was like, feeding calves. It's still been the main part of my life for, basically the last 9 or 10 years. And I got burnt out. I got burnt out in the field. I got burnt out talking about it, and it might sound kind of crummy for me to say that, but it's honestly the honest truth. And I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to take a break talking about agriculture, talking about farming, just like take a breather from that world. And now that I've taken a few years to kind of step back, get my fitness coaching business off the ground, find my systems. I've developed a program, the Burnout to Bliss Blueprint, that hits a lot of the marks that, a lot of the things that I was seeing people like me struggling with, women in agriculture struggling with, but, kind of approaching it in a more generalized way. And now I'm ready to really dial back in on that, and I'm making some changes. I am speaking specifically to women in agriculture now, women in animal agriculture, women in plants, horticulture, floriculture, that's like growing flowers, things like that. And I realized that this is what I was meant to do. Like my struggle in dairy farming, and of course I loved many aspects of my career in dairy farming. My struggle in that career, and I've had experience with other animals too. My degree is general animal science, but my struggles in that area were all serving this purpose of helping me to help someone else later on down the road. And I've learned that if you work in agriculture, there's so many things that people who don't work in agriculture don't understand. When I worked on the farm, there were so many things that I would try to explain to family, explain to friends, about my job on the farm, about how, I would skip lunch because, a cow was calving and she needed assistance, and maybe we had to call the vet, and once the vet pulls in the driveway, you're paying them, from the second they pull in to when they leave, and you have to skip lunch sometimes and blah blah blah. And there was just things they didn't understand, and they're like, what do you mean you can't do this? What do you mean you have to work on Christmas? What do you mean, you can't come to Thanksgiving dinner? And I'm not saying some of these things need to be this way, but when you are a woman working in agriculture, and men too, there's just a lot of things that aren't widely understood. It's becoming such a small percentage of people who are involved in our food production in the world, and there's just so many things people don't understand. I shared a reel the other day, saying that cows aren't hooked up to milking machines 24 hours a day, and a lot of people, if you didn't grow up around agriculture, you just don't know that. And it's not calling you dumb or stupid or whatever. There's lots of things I don't know about other industries and how things are made that I use every day. But it's just the fact of the matter that if you don't work in the field, there's just nuances that other people don't understand. And working with some of my clients, I worked with clients who worked in agriculture and ones who didn't. But I have really connected a lot with my clients who work in agriculture. And it's because we understand each other on so much of a deeper level that other people don't understand. And there's things that I take into consideration as a coach when I'm coaching someone who works in agriculture that someone who's never worked in the field simply would not understand. And as I started to think more and more about the direction that I want my business to head in this year, I was just thinking man, this is what I need to do. I need to help the past version of myself who didn't know how to help myself, right? Who didn't know how to, not skip breakfast, how to not skip lunch. I would literally not eat anything until 3 p.m. I would go to work at 5:30, not eat anything till 3 p.m., hit McDonald's on my way home, and get a huge meal from McDonald's and crash on the couch the rest of the night. And these things sound so simple, especially if you don't work in the field, and it's well, just eat breakfast. Just eat lunch. Just don't do that. It sounds so simple. And in the same way that diet advice might sound simple, in the case of someone who just wants to lose weight, someone that doesn't even work in agriculture, it sounds simple, oh, just move more and eat less. You always hear that. But these things are not simple, because clearly so many of us struggle with them. And I struggled with a lot of these things for a long time. Nutrition being a huge one in agriculture. And, before I went into working full-time in agriculture, right? Because, I started off working part-time in high school, worked part-time while I was in college, on the college dairy farm because I went to an agricultural college. And before I went to working full-time, there were just things that I had never done, never had a full-time position in ag, never experienced before, that I just didn't know how to handle. I'd always been able to have time to work out, and exercise, and that had always been a huge mental thing for me, a huge stress reliever. And, when I went to working full-time in agriculture, it was okay, now I have less time to work out. When I do work out, I'm already tired because I've, worked a physical job all day. And because I've done that, I don't want my workout to just be running on a treadmill or doing a HIIT workout, which I used to do when I worked on the farm. because I just didn't understand how to work out properly for my goals, it's like, well, what kind of workout should I be doing to reach my goals that's not going to exhaust me and completely drain me even more after a long day of physical work on the farm? And there's so many things I could list off that are just so specific to fitness and farming, whether it's animal agriculture or horticulture, floriculture, working with plants. But there's just so many little nuances, and it, like any specialist, it kind of takes an expert to help someone through those. And that's what you're going to be seeing from me, from now on, is I am actually in the process of building a new program. I still have Burnout to Bliss, but I'm building a new program that is specific to women in ag, specific to a lot of the struggles that you face that are not typical to every job, right? Not typical to people who sit at a desk job all day. So I'm building this program. It's in the early stages, but I am going to be doing a beta round, which will be priced lower than what the final price will be at. So if you are interested in that, please let me know, because while it is still in the beginning stages, since it is going to be kind of a beta round, you will kind of get some things differently as I roll them out for the first round. And obviously hence the lower price to get in as I build and develop the program. And you'll get lifetime access to the course that I'm building. So even though you'll be in the beginning, you'll still get to see it come to its full fruition. Hard to explain, but it's even the beta round is already going to be amazing. I'm just going to continue to build and grow upon that from the feedback I get in that round. But if you are interested in that, please get in touch with me on Instagram, and we can talk about how to get you in there and answer any questions that you have. But this podcast, it's not really a pitch for my program, but these are things that I am doing this year. This podcast, I don't really see changing too much. The balanced hustle is still super relevant to women in agriculture, and you will still find things here that apply to women in agriculture as well as women who work in other professions, things that, you can relate to and learn from and build on, take tools for in your health and wellness. There will be plenty of that still. So, if you aren't a woman in agriculture, you can still get value here. And there are a lot of fitness and nutrition concepts that you can still get value from, even if you aren't a woman in agriculture. But if you are, this is where I'm going to, connect deeply with you in some of my new content. I want you to feel like someone understands you, understands the struggles that you are working toward, and, can specifically help you with very specific things that, no one else can help you with. And we're going to talk about, things that just no other people understand, things that are just very niche topics. There's so many things I could say right now that only women in agriculture would get, and other people would look at me like I have 3 heads. And I think that's true for every profession. There's things that I'm sure a nurse could say to another nurse, and I would overhear it, and I'd be like, what are you talking about? And I think that's why it's so important that we do niche. There are a million online fitness coaches out there now, right? So, if I was a nurse, I'd want to work with one that talked to nurses, and, that goes for all the professions. If I was a mom, I'd want to work with a coach who, is also a mom. And I think it's just a wonderful opportunity to not look at, the market out there. And this is kind of getting into the business end of things, but not look at, the market out there as, oh my God, it's too saturated, or, oh my God, there's no opportunity for me here. This is like an opportunity I'm very excited about building my business on. And I think it gives us all, all of us coaches in the industry, a really great, I'm going to say opportunity to like niche down, to talk to exactly who we want to talk to connect so deeply with our clients. And, you don't have to be the coach for everybody. And I think that's honestly a very beautiful thing, a really fun thing. And we get to all be super unique in our own ways. So that is just a little update on some of the changes that you'll be seeing, around here. And hey, if it doesn't connect with you, that's cool. But if it does, I'm so excited to just really connect with you on so much of a deeper level. My dog just touched my keyboard and things are going nuts, but I think we're still good recording here. So with that being said, I hope that you enjoy some of the new stuff. Again, there's still going to be some, things here that everybody can take and gain from in terms of health and fitness, but that is what is happening here. So a little hiatus from the podcast, but we're back. I'm going to try to record a couple more episodes here, basically until I get tired of talking to myself and hearing myself talk. Both the dogs are here, so I guess they're an audience of some sort. But thank you for listening today, and I will talk to you very soon in the next one. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Balanced Hustle podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Be sure to leave a review or share with someone who needs a little extra balance in their hustle. For more tips, tools, and resources to help you reclaim your energy and build the strong, vibrant life you deserve, follow me on Instagram at LindsaySherman_fitness, and don't forget to subscribe here so you don't miss a single episode. Until next time, remember, progress is always better than perfection. Keep taking those small steps. They'll tell you exactly where you need to go. Talk soon.